Hello, it's Tara Boothby, Sojourn Psychology, registered psychologist in Alberta, Canada. And I want to talk about corrective epiphanies. Corrective epiphanies is something that we talk a lot about in emotionally focused therapy. This is Sue Johnson's model. And originally, she would call it a corrective experience. But towards the end of her life, she passed away this spring, 2024. Sue started using this language, corrective epiphany, which really inspires me actually. So I like the word epiphany. When we look at the word epiphany, epiphany is really defined as a manifesting of the essential nature of something or the world of who we are, the essential nature. There's so many ways that we can sink into what essential nature can apply to. And as we sink into epiphany and essential nature, we make meaning from that. And this really fits, this word in this language really fits with what we're trying to do with emotionally focused therapy, whether we're working with couples, individuals, or families. Now, I'm not just going to talk about therapy here. I really want to talk about corrective epiphany, but I'm giving you some of the background of where this language is coming from. So what do we think? I mean, I've written a book, Love and Love's Energy, and the source or one of the inspirations for that book is evolutionary psychology. And the word nature is very important in association with evolutionary psychology. We have nature and then we have nurture. And what is nurture? Nurture might be the energy, the flow, the space that is held within corrective epiphany. So our nurture experience, the attachment science, the love energy, self-love energy, the compassion, the caring, the caregiver intent, these words that swirl around within what is nurture. And nurture is something that we're drawn to. It's something that we desire, rooted in evolutionary psychology again, because nurture is essential to our survival. So this language is overlapping within epiphany, within that manifestation. There is this essential revelation about our nature and the meaning that we make. And as we, theorize, I'm more of a theorist than a researcher. Stats is beyond me. But as we theorize about this essential nature, as humans, we discover that nurture is just so very important. And that is what is held within corrective epiphany, is a space where nurture can and does occur. I say can and does because sometimes we just don't understand that these epiphany moments, these corrective spaces are being provided, and then we can move past them. And again, this is what emotionally focused therapy is trying to do, is to help us gain these moments in the therapy room so that we can walk away and have our brains wired to see and experience those moments in more authentic ways where we can gather up the meaning. Corrective epiphany can happen all around us. Surely it does. And we can see what is hidden in plain sight if our brain is wired to see it. And if our brain is not alert to the epiphany that's occurring, the correctiveness, the meaning making cannot occur. So I wanted to give some examples of corrective epiphany from my own life, just to, inspire. And also because for me, it's very important to notice these corrective relational epiphanies, the corrective spiritual epiphanies as well. I try to notice those things, honing in on the moments that occur relationally. So one of the things that I think often about is just hugging my children and sinking in and really giving myself space to not rush away from the hug that I am sharing with this little person. And I think sometimes I shared this when we were doing the circle of security training last week. When I think about attachment theory and when I really hone in on understanding what love energy is, I can have this sensation where the insides of my arms just kind of feel lonely. and that there's this space, this occurrence on my skin that longs for being able to hold one of my children, maybe my husband, maybe a dear friend, that my heart starts to long for the corrective epiphany of a heart-to-heart hug, the co-regulation, the hormonal endorphin-y experience we have when we sink into a heart-to-heart connected hug. And last night, my little boy got out of bed and I, had a parenting fail, and I was, saying, get back to bed or whatever it was, and could hear him kind of whimpering in his room. And I went up and he said, huggy, and his little arms stretched out. So I could have missed what was hidden in plain sight, and I could have missed out on a moment of epiphany as I moved into his room and I walked over to him and my arms met his and I pulled him in, and I got that special moment of corrective epiphany with my son. Another example that I'll talk about is I think it was 2021, I became aware of listening circles, and listening circles are a beautiful opportunity to just listen, to hear people who are different than us speak about their own experience. And when I first sat in a listening circle, I didn't know what I was doing there, and I didn't know if I wanted to be there, but I was just listening. And as I listened, I had this occurrence as if a light shone on me, and the information that I was hearing about this person's humanity and how they were different than I just saturated and connected in through my head and washed over me. And I had epiphany. It's hard to put into words the correction that occurred for me about matters of differences, and just listening to somebody's story that I really, really couldn't identify with because of our matters of differences. We are same but different, but our different is really, really important to hear. I talk a lot about hearing, again, my view of attachment, longing, the hearing, the seeing, and the knowing. I've moved the words around compared to how they traditionally were, based on some spiritual epiphany that I had in teachings of Christian theology, where it seemed to me that hearing comes before seeing, comes before knowing. We all long to be heard by loving ears, seen by loving eyes, and known by a loving mind. When I corrected that in my own thought, that fits biologically as well. Babies hear first. Their eyes don't really develop for a while until they're out of the womb. Everything's a little foggy. So they're hearing the familiarity of mommy's voice, of mommy's heartbeat. They can co-regulate in better. And then they start the seeing, and then they start the knowing. And the reverse occurs, that we are heard, that we are seen, that we are known. It's beautiful language. It's lovely to philosophize on. Hear me, see me, know me, and how that fits into this nurture space, this corrective epiphany space, this love energy space. And then I think too, a cute little story. My husband and I have been married for almost 2 decades. And so we just celebrated our 19th anniversary. We didn't do anything special because we have children and it was on a Tuesday. Other than we just lived our lives together that day. And as we went to bed, I said, Jay, can you believe we've been married 19 years? And Jason said, yeah, like it'll be 20 years next year. And we lingered in this moment, laughing and teasing and lingering in this space of we've been together this long, and a 20-year anniversary. It doesn't actually make me feel old. There's an honoring. There's a epiphany of the nature of who we are and the nurture that we've shared. And in that corrective noticing, this epiphany between my husband and I, the epiphany that occurred for me in the listening circle, the epiphany that occurred for me as I hugged my son. I also had a moment recently with a new friend, a stranger, when we started talking, and they shared this story with me of heartbreak that was haunting them. And as they shared this story of heartbreak, I sunk into a place that felt familiar. Oh, I had heartbreak like that once. And I shared that with this stranger. And in that moment, as we looked at each other, I had heard them, they had heard me, and then we looked at each other and we bonded. There was a very simple shift, a very hidden epiphany that occurred between us that could have been missed or could have felt embarrassing or like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I share? But we both caught it somehow. And that sacredness of connecting became a beautiful bonding, our nurturing, what will I say? Vulnerability, that we were vulnerable in a way that we didn't have to be. And that yielded to a revelation of what was essential between the two of us, which was just our humanity. So these are just some of the ways that when our brain is more wired to see the corrective epiphany, we can start to see what is hidden in plain sight. And what is hidden in plain sight? Love. That's what I will say. Sometimes my theology friends will call it kenosis. And I'm lingering and starting to discover more of what that word means. I think it's an important word. It's an important epiphany. But love works. What's hidden in plain sight is love. And if we don't learn to wire our brain to see that which is hidden is not so hidden, we'll miss it. So we all long to be heard by loving ears, seen by loving eyes, and known by a loving mind. And that is available. It's available within self-love, within love energy between people, and within what I notice as this grander mass of love's energy, which is always loving us because we are loved, lovable, and loving. Yeah. So what does this all mean? Really, the goal with emotionally focused therapy and the goal with discovering attachment theory, discovering love's energy, lingering in a philosophy or a theology of kenosis is a shift in our view to understand that without seeing what is hidden in plain sight, love's energy, that lovingness and lovability that we all linger in, we sit in a negative view of self, a negative view of others, and a negative view of God, or a more negative view, at very least. The more we can wire our brain to see these moments of corrective epiphany, these moments of hearing, of seeing, of knowing, the more we can start to discover and recover a positive view of self, a positive view of others, and a positive view of God. It's kind of a neat thing to philosophize on and think about. What is epiphany and what is correction? And what does corrective epiphany for relationship mean? So this is some of my thoughts. This is where I'm landing right now. Thank you for being here. And I hope some of the stories that I've shared, the little snippets of epiphanies that I've experienced in my own life, might help you to pause and linger and wonder about epiphany in your own life. And I'm really thankful for Sue Johnson and all that she did for us and all that she taught us, and her love for language, because words matter, and getting explicit about our experience helps us to better experience our experience. And within that experience is epiphany. Peace and love, and I'll see you later.